Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Kussler. I am a third-year PhD student at Montana State University in Bozeman. I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to make it to tonight's convention. I'm actually in Zambia right now working on my PhD, but I hope this video will entertain you in my stead. For my third birthday, I was given one of the most wonderful gifts in the world, a picture book of cheetahs. It may just sound like a child's toy, and indeed, I carried it around like most children would carry a blanket or a doll. And I would even show it to my own cat and try to teach her about her distant relatives. But what made that book so special was not just the joy it brought me as a child, but that it quietly defined who I would become. For as long as I can remember, I have wanted to study and protect wildlife, especially big cats. My parents are environmental scientists, so it's no surprise they encouraged this passion. Dissecting bobcat scat was about as normal in our household as Sunday dinner, and some of my earliest memories are of joining my mother on biological surveys. When I was 4 years old, I helped find my first endangered bog turtle. I can still remember the feeling of the mud dripping down my arm and the excitement of the adults around me at the exciting find. That moment stayed with me, and it was part of what made me want to dedicate my life to protecting rare and endangered species. In 2018, I moved to Zambia to work with the Zambian Carnivore Program, as you can see here. I lived there full-time for over 5 years, serving first as a field ecologist and then as the project manager in Kafue National Park. Our work went far beyond just research, though. We worked closely with the park authorities and local communities to reduce poaching, remove wire snares, and support the training and leadership of young Zambian conservationists. It was deeply collaborative, deeply challenging, and it shaped not only my career, but who I am as a person and who I want to be. Today, my PhD research builds directly on that experience. I still work for the Zambian Carnivore Program, and I still study cheetahs in the greater Kafue ecosystem, which is one of Africa's most important remaining conservation landscapes. Despite being such an iconic species, though, cheetahs are declining rapidly. There are fewer than 7,000 remaining in the wild. And my research asks some of the very important but urgent questions, like how many cheetahs are there? What determines whether they survive or reproduce successfully? And how do they use space in a landscape shared with larger predators and increasing human pressures? To answer these questions, I work with a big team and a long-term data collected through GPS collars, camera traps, and individual identification. My early findings suggest a pretty complicated picture. While adult cheetahs survive at pretty high rates, cub survival is extremely low, and many deaths are linked to human-related threats like poaching and vehicle collisions. The goal of this work, though, is simple, even if the science is complex: to provide the information needed to make better conservation decisions so that cheetahs and the ecosystems in which they live can persist into the future. I first learned about the P.E.O. Scholar Award through Katie Hoffman, and I'm incredibly grateful to her and her chapter for encouraging me to do so. I would also really like to thank my department at Montana State University for their nomination, and my advisors, Dr. Scott Creel and Dr. Justine Becker, for their support through this process. This award gave me a semester without needing to take on a teaching assistantship, which is the freedom to live without the looming stress of going into debt, taking out additional loans, or worrying about how it would cover basic expenses like housing or medical care. And beyond that, it created incredible opportunity. It helped me cover the cost of returning to Zambia for another field season, where I'm not just collecting critical data for my research, but also continuing the mentorship and capacity building work with my Zambian colleagues and team. And perhaps most importantly for my PhD, it gave me time to think deeply, to write, to analyze, and to do the kind of careful, rigorous science that meaningful conservation depends on. And that kind of support is transformative. It doesn't just make the work easier, it makes better work possible. Looking ahead, I hope to continue into a postdoctoral position, expanding this research across the broader region, and ultimately to help establish new conservation and research programs in underserved areas to maintain the integrity of cheetah populations. And my long-term goal is not only to advance scientific understanding, but to help continue building local capacity, supporting and mentoring the next generation of conservationists who will carry on this work. And I do often think back to that little girl with her cheetah book. At the time, it was just a fascination, but over the years, it's grown into something much larger, a commitment to science and to protecting species and ecosystems that are increasingly under threat. The P.E.O. Scholar Award is now a part of that story, a part of my story. And it's not just an investment in me, but in the work that I'm able to do, in the people that I collaborate with, and the impact this work can have. So thank you all so much for your generosity, your support, and your belief in scholars like me. It makes everything possible, and it truly means more than I can express.